Hello, everyone. Welcome. This is Zara Sethna of Collapse Life. I'm so pleased to be here for our last chat about the book, The Preparation, with my good friend Susan Harley from Courageous Conversations. And we are very happy today to be joined by Maxim Smith, who is one of the authors of The Preparation and the one who is actually acting it out in real life. So, lots to talk about and catch up on in terms of what this book means for you, Maxim, and for everyone who's been reading it and where it goes from here. But everyone, just welcome. Thanks for being here. And Maxim, congratulations. This is really amazing that you've done this, not only written the book, but actually lived it out. It's just another accomplishment that you can add to your list in your list of things that you've done in this short amount of time. So well done and congratulations. And welcome, Susan.
Well, thank you. It means a lot.
Yeah. It's very impressive and very delightful and a pleasure to meet with you, Maxim, especially after we've been delving into the book. And I suppose my first question to you is, where are you now in this big adventure, this curriculum?
Well, this is the first year that I've gotten used to actually using the cycles in the book that we've developed, because for about a year and a half, I didn't have any of that. So this is the first year I've implemented, I would say, about three and a half of them. I did the sailing cycle, where I sailed in the Falklands. I also did most of the pilot cycle, and then now I'm doing the entrepreneur cycle. And so I have two agricultural drones now. I have a smaller multispectral imaging drone and a larger T40 spreader application drone, where you can put seed and fertilizer into it. And so now I've been using that as an agricultural drone business to start here in Uruguay. And I'll be doing that for the next 2 months. So that's where I'm at the moment. It's
Okay.
interesting to start to something new.
I've been following you on Substack, which people can do, obviously, and encourage them to do that. And I was interested to read how challenging it was with your drone idea and this entrepreneurialness to culturally in Uruguay, that how
Mhm.
receptive they were. So what's amazing in terms of what you're learning, not just the business side of it, the financials, but about your customers, and how are you finding that?
Well, it's interesting because Uruguay is not an entrepreneurial country. It's just not in Uruguayan blood to really step out of the norm and do something that is, I wouldn't even call it radical, just something that is outside of the normal way of living. And I think part of that has to do with the fact that everybody knows everybody here.
Yeah.
And so if it's basically a country of 3 million people, that's kind of like a big, sounds weird, but like a big small town where everybody
Yeah.
knows everybody. And so if you failed with an endeavor like starting a business, then the impact of that is bigger, because if you go in the States and try to start a business, your customers will be, hopefully they're repeat customers, but you might only meet them once or twice.
Hmm.
Or, there's just not that much impact on you personally. The failure isn't as heavy because
Right.
there's 350 million people there compared to the 3 million people here. And if you fail, your failure is going to be known by quite a lot of people because they're so interconnected. So I think there's a couple of reasons for it, and it is difficult to try to get Uruguayan specifically to adapt to a new change in something like, oh, maybe doing this the old way isn't as great. We should try something new.
Hmm.
So there's some challenges with it, and things are much more slowly done in Uruguay. Like to set up a business, even just to set up a sole proprietorship, took me 3 weeks.
Hmm.
Whereas in the US, you can set up an LLC online in, I think, a day or two. So on that basis alone, it's there's lots of problems, lots of little problems to deal with.
Yeah.
But it's interesting nonetheless. I mean, the whole idea behind the entrepreneurship cycle is that you don't even have to have a single customer over those 3 months. You can completely fail, make zero money, even lose money within those 3 months following the program. The whole point is just to learn what the process of starting a business is like and try to see if you can get it started. So,
Hmm.
of course, I prefer to have customers, but it's not necessary, not required for the program.
That's so interesting. I'm fascinated to hear you talk about failure, because in the 2 years that you've been doing this, you've encountered a lot of challenges and a lot of setbacks. And so I wanted to ask you, what is your approach to failure, or how has it been incorporated in this whole kind of learning journey for you?
It's, I mean, failure's a difficult thing. I think it's, the beauty behind doing so much in a very short period of time is that you are obviously going to fail quite a lot, in at least a lot of small ways. And so you can get used to it and build a resilience against failure, and just know that it's part of the process.
Mhm.
But there's been at least one time within the last 2 years where I felt like there's been a big failure where it's not just an external issue of, you know, things didn't work out and whatever, or it was just ignorance, lack of understanding of how something works. There was one time within the past year where it was just my own shortcomings, and I had to see that directly and go, oh, I missed out on doing a lot of interesting things in a short period of time and getting stuff done like I planned to, because of the fact that I just forgot why I'm doing all this and kind of shrunk back away
Mhm.
from doing what I should have done. So there's been one, what I would say, what I would call a major failure within the last 2 years. But I think failure is healthy. Obviously, it's healthy because it, more so than winning, it allows you to see exactly what went wrong and how you can move forward in a good, productive way, to overcome any failures in the future.
Yeah. I
And
think I think that's so correct because it's inevitable that we're going to have challenges, and sometimes we're going to win and sometimes we're going to lose. But I think culturally, I don't think we really prepare people for failure to be inevitable. So when it comes, it feels catastrophic rather than just like, okay, this happened. How can I adjust and move on from it? And so the fact that you have experienced it, moved past it, learned from it, and know that you will anticipate again something similar, maybe not a complete breakdown, but you've incorporated it as part of the program. I think that's so important, and it'll be so helpful for you as you get older, rather than it feeling like a complete shock and a betrayal, and just a breakdown for people the first time they fail at something.
100%, 100%. And I think you can only reach those major failures if you step outside of the normal tracks of life, because of course, because at that point it's all external stuff that can cause personal failures in your life, or what you would consider personal failures in your life. Is like, oh, I didn't get the job I wanted. Well, that could have just been because there was somebody who was more qualified. That's not really a huge issue. Whereas when you're going out and doing stuff on your own, there's going to be at least once or twice or maybe 5, 10, 15 times where there's a massive failure because of your own actions or lack of action. I mean, I was speaking to a guy recently. He was actually the guy who allowed me to go to his ranch in Colorado and learn horse and mule packing from
Mm.
him for a few days. He was one of the guys who gave me a crazy random opportunity. And I look up to him a lot. I mean, he's lived an amazing, incredible life. At 12 years old, he became a certified scuba diver. At 16, he was a professional meat cutter. He started a tech business, a distribution business. And then when his partner died, I think in his 40s, during when he was working or creating that distribution business, he realized he was in the wrong path, on the wrong path in his life, and that he didn't want to do that anymore. So he completely made a wild switch. He went to Africa. He went through a hunting guide apprenticeship for
Wow.
about 2 or 3 years, and did that working along the Maasai tribe for I don't know how long, probably just maybe 5 years or so. But he's done so many things in his life. I look up to him, and the other day he said to me, you know, I like how much, I appreciate how much you look up to me and admire me, but I'm concerned because I think that, I've made so many mistakes in my life that I don't want you to be disappointed when you find out about one of them, or just when one of them comes up. And I had to tell him, like, I completely understand. After just 2 years of doing this stuff, I can see how any self-directed life is going to be, unfortunately, riddled with plenty of personal mistakes, maybe a few regrets, and it's part of the process. So I think failure is just part of it. It's a key aspect to it all that I think the average person doesn't get a full taste of in their life. But,
That would be nice, but I think most of us recognize whatever life we have, there are always failures, and you're very wise about how you're approaching it. And I was interested because obviously from a CLAPS perspective, we're looking at the major failures in systems and lack of trust in government, and especially in the States. I don't know what it's like in Uruguay at the moment, but and the UK, where there's a lot of dissent as well, it's a pivotal time. And I was wondering, when I started the book, the preparation, were you motivated to do it because you didn't know what to do, or were you motivated because you saw the state of the world and thought, I'd better do something that equips me to live in this world?
it's a good question, Susan. It's a good question. I think it's kind of intertwined, actually. It was intertwined because, especially after 2020, I I realized that the framework of reality was much different than I thought it was. And it was very disheartening, actually, because I think the world became, in some ways, even though it became much crazier, much more dull as well on some levels, because you realize the extent of evil in the world, and it's not a pleasant feeling to realize that. Obviously, you guys know this. So in some ways, it was kind of the the two things intertwined, where I already knew that the world wasn't what I thought it was. And let's say I turned 18 before 2020. Let's say I turned 18 in 2015. I think I still would have not have wanted to go to college, but it would have been I would have been much more lax about it, and like, you know, there's lots of good things with college. Maybe I could go down that path. Maybe there's, you know, I guess if I was kind of silly, I would go get a business degree. That still wouldn't provide me very much. But I think knowing that the world is how it actually is now, it was an additional factor in making that decision. I knew I didn't want to go to college, but I didn't know what to do. But I did know that the world is. I knew that a degree wasn't going to allow me anything in a world that is run by evil people. That's how I saw it, if that makes any sense.
It makes perfect
It
sense,
makes
and
perfect
obviously
sense.
very courageous of you to see the reality. So many people aren't able to do that, and I mean that was like a great explanation of your reasoning. And I wondered if anybody in our audience who are also very pleased is here and joining us. If they've got any questions, do send them in.
Yeah, please. Yes, we'd love to hear your thoughts on Maxim's experience and your own, how it maps to your own. I mean, you're absolutely right, Maxim. I think that this timing is perfect for what you're embarking on because um, looking at the world and how it's managed,
Mhm.
it's so clear that going to college, how's that going to help? And in the 4 years that you have to spend doing that in order to gain a degree, the world could change to a point where it's just completely indistinguishable from how it was before because things are changing so quickly at this stage. So it makes perfect sense, and I think it's really interesting as well. I think a lot of young people probably feel similarly to you, that I really don't want to go to college, but that becomes one of the first things you recognize as some sort of a failure in a way, because we've socialized young people to think that that is what you do. That's the path to success. Good people, successful people, smart people finish school and go to college, get a degree, get a job. And so when you are faced with this thought that I want to deviate from that path, if you don't come from the kind of family or the kind of community that you've come from, where you're surrounded by people who have done those kinds of things, you feel probably like, ugh, I'm a failure. I don't want to do those things that everybody tells me I need to do to be a good, productive member of society. So
Mhm.
I think the timing of you doing this, showcasing it, and writing this book is probably really, really well placed, because I'm sure there's millions of other young people who feel the same way as you and now don't have to see it as a failure. They can see this as an opportunity.
Yeah, it really was oddly good timing for everything. Everything lined up very well, actually, and I I, I think that no matter what, still the it's not even just that people think that the only way to, or at least one of the major ways to be successful, is to go even through high school and then go to college, and get a degree, get a job. I think it's just that mental framework overall of there has to be these steps, these boxes that you check in life to define any sort of success. I think that is still going to, even if the college stuff disappears, which I think it will, especially with AI. I mean, most of the degrees are going to be completely worthless, and obviously so. But I think even afterwards, there's still going to be a major desire among people to have those check boxes, or those boxes that they check in life, and a certain path they walk. So for the people going through the preparation, even if you have, even if you learn a lot within 9 months and get a lot done, people are still going to look at you as somewhat of a failure. I mean, my family did. I didn't know this until I learned a few months ago when my dad mentioned it. But my family, both apparently on my mom's side and dad's side, were calling my dad and asking me if I was okay, uh, because they saw I was going to strange places and doing different stuff and transitioning from one thing to the next. So I think no matter what, and probably no matter who you are and where you are in the world, you're going to have people look at you as somewhat of a failure for a little bit, at least. Um, but it's part of the process. Failure again, or even being looked at as a failure, is part of the process, for sure.
And not being tied to what other people think of you. And in a world where the rules are going, the old rules are going anyway, and some people aren't recognizing that or aren't willing to accept it. So you can't be held back by that, can you, Maxine? I just wanted to say that Kathy Tarrant says that she admires your courage to embark on the preparation. And I think it would be great. I know you're trying to spread it wide, and I was really heartened, and I got some positive comments about the fact that you're setting up this foundation. That if there was a general curriculum, because there's a lot of young people who are very depressed and despondent. They're told continually that there's no future, that we're all going to go extinct, la 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 la. And it would be so good to recognize that things are collapsing, but that doesn't mean the end. That means the beginning of something new. And in your book, and I can't remember all of it, but it was like to become competent, and all I remember is and dangerous.
Hmm.
um, you know, this ability to say that whatever happens, I have the flexibility and the skills and capacity and the personal qualities to be able to deal with it.
Absolutely, and that takes time and effort. I think you at least need to do three major things that take up, let's say, 9 months in total for you to realize that if you want to go down a certain path and learn something, you can do it, and it's not a big deal. It's no problem. You can do it fairly quickly, and so you can have that flexibility. But I think it takes time, and it's hard to move from 0 to 1, from going from the basis of these people don't want to see me succeed in the world. There's lots of evil people that don't want me to succeed in the world. And also being told at school, because I remember this, that um, basically the world is going to burn up and there's going to be massive climate change very soon. Uh, the oceans are going to be 10 times higher than they are now. And we're all going to be swimming around and we're going to be dead. I remember being taught that in science class in middle school. They were saying that to me. So I understand where young people are coming from, where they're starting from of everything sucks, the future looks terrible, and nobody has anything hopeful or reasonable or wise to say to me about what I should do besides here's this path.
Yeah.
Um, so making that transition from 0 to 1 is hard, but I think it all starts off with the be do have and the virtues, because then you're not looking for outside approval again, just like you were saying, Susan. I think that's how you stop looking for outside approval is you bring it inward and you go, my actions are up to me and all I care about is how I act and what I do. Doesn't matter how I present myself, whatever, it's fine. Because Epictetus or Marcus Aurelius, Socrates certainly didn't care about what people thought of him. He was the man. I mean, there's a reason why in Benjamin Franklin's moral code he said, have humility like Socrates and Jesus. There's a reason why he put those two figures together. I mean, Socrates was up there, but he
Interesting.
didn't care about what other people thought. But it was all because he brought it back into himself and only focused on what he could do personally. I think that's how you transition from being dependent upon other people and external outcomes to having the flexibility to do what you think you should do in the
Mhm.
world and transition very easily. I
Yeah.
think that's how it starts.
I think the idea of courage, like what our commenter Kathy said, is really important, and it's probably not something that you thought of as you started this, but now maybe looking back, do you see what you've done as building courage? Is it because I remember when we were talking with on the Collapse Life podcast with your dad, we were asking, what advice would you have for other young people? And courage was a word that came up, I think, between you and your dad. That
Yes.
making that first step, being able to say, I'm not going to do what the world expects of me. I'm going to do something totally different, takes courage. And so just talk a little bit about that. And then we do have a question from our audience, which I'll bring to you in a second.
Sounds good. Yeah, I remember that interview, and I remember at first I used the word ambition, bring ambition to the table, and that's what I say in the preface. Actually, I use the word ambition, but my dad corrected me, and I think it was a good correction in saying it's not necessarily ambition. it is courage, because I don't think there's anything I have done where I haven't been scared at some point. I was scared even to walk into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu classes when I first started, and probably throughout 9 months of it. I was scared to go to EMT school. I was scared to go through at least a decent amount of flight school.
Mm-hmm.
I was scared to sail, especially after the first night I got seasick. I was worried about the next 3 weeks. I was scared to work on wildfires. I mean, everything brings fear, but Carl Jung has the good quote of, I think it goes, "Where your fear is, there is your path," or something like that.
Yeah.
Basically saying that fear is the indicator that that is something you should pursue.
Yeah.
So but of course, courage is required in that, and we have had some people, some young people who have been given the preparation, um, and they read it and say, "Okay, that's great," but they do nothing with it.
Mm-hmm.
That's okay. Not everybody has to do it. People do their own things. That's what we want. We want
Mm-hmm.
people to choose what they want to choose. But it's clear just from, because I know some of these people, that most of that they're just picking up the book and saying that's good and not doing anything with it. It's not out of just disinterest or interest in something else. It's lack of courage. It's,
Yeah.
here's like a insurmountable task that's been put before them, which we've laid out in a pretty simple way. It's not insurmountable. It's easy actually, but it requires so much effort that they shy away from it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's just further proof that the one virtue of courage is 100% a necessity in all of this. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. At least to get started. And I think that that's a good segue to the question that we have, because you've mentioned that there are some young people who have read the book but not taken action. But there are others who have taken action, and I know you've been writing about some of them and sharing their own Substacks. But so Michael Ockram asks, Maxim, how have you seen the preparation community growing and connecting so far? And do you see it evolving into an in-person community, syncing cycles and going on adventures together in real life?
Yes, yes. I think I know Michael, or at least I know his son. I've spoke to his son a little bit, who is starting the preparation, is in it, and he's been in it
Fantastic.
for about a month now, um, finishing up his pilot cycle.
Awesome.
Actually, um, how do I see growing the preparation community growing, connecting so far? I mean, it's growing quite a bit. I think it's hard to gauge what a decent growth rate is at this point, because we didn't really have anybody reaching out to us for about a month and a half after the book was released. Where in the book we tell people, create a Substack, reach out to us, let us know, we can help hold you accountable. But I guess just off the top of my head, there's one guy who most recently contacted me. He's Irish, but he's in France right now. He started Substack page for it. There's of course Nathan Ockram. Uh, like I said, I think he's Michael's son. And there's
There's a
people of
young
many.
woman who I started following, and I don't remember her name now.
Yes, that's actually my girlfriend is one. She has it's Senna's preparation, I think is what
Correct.
it's called, her
Yeah.
page. There's a middle-aged guy, and I think it's his page is called Preparation for Midlife. He has kids, he has a wife and kids, yet he's doing it. So let's
Yeah.
say it's grown to maybe about 7 people now, 8 people, which is it's decent for the amount of time it's been out, in my opinion.
Right. Which is
But
not that long. It's a couple of months.
yes, yeah,
Yeah.
since August 18th. Yeah, so
Mhm.
it's not too bad. And I think it'll grow a lot more in the future, especially after being on Glenn Beck and um, him endorsing it and saying, "Oh, I'm gonna end the podcast here and actually talk to my son about it."
That's awesome.
So, oh, yeah, it is awesome. So I think it will grow quite a bit. But in the future, our goal, and this ties into the foundation that we plan on setting up, is that we do host events where basically people can come to, probably it'll probably be in Uruguay, can come here. People who are in the preparation, have a Substack page, have been doing it for at least a certain amount of time, maybe 3 months at the very least. They can come here and we will host an event where they can learn a new skill, and that will be part of a cycle for them, or an entire cycle for them. And they can meet with other preppers, as we like to call them, and do things together, learn things together. That's our plan, and I think that'll happen in the future. I just think we need enough people
Yeah.
to do it. So maybe once we get to 50, 75, 100 people in total, I think that'll be a good jumping off point for something like that. But at right now, with 8 people spread out across the world, I don't know how well that would work out. So sometime in the future, for sure.
Stephen asked, is this a business opportunity? Is there a way to create a preparation forum? I mean, I know somebody who set up a whole business around community, and well, it's to do with health, but the idea that facing adversity is better done in community. And I think that's something, obviously, that longer term, because it's got off to a good start, hasn't it, the book, and the people that are buying into this process, and within a couple of months actually making changes in their lives. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yes, I mean, I was talking to Nathan Ankrum about this because he said that there should be a way that all the people going through the preparation can connect and kind of have an online community apart from Substack, where everybody can talk, which is a great idea. And I think we will do that once we have enough people, for sure. But my thought with it was, not only should we have a place where everybody can meet and talk online, but also extending beyond that, like having a page on a website where it has a full map of the world, and if people allow it, they can post where they're at, so you can see all these pinpoints of who's where, what they're doing, what cycle they're in.
That's cool.
And connect even more with other people. So I think there is, I don't know if I'd want to make it a business where I can make money off of people joining that, because I think it should just be kind of free and open to other people within the preparation. I think there'll be some kind of wall where we either accept people or don't, just so we can only have good people in there, well-intentioned people in there. But I don't know if trying to get people to pay for something like that would be something I would do. But yes, some way to connect everybody, 100%.
Maxim, your experience is always going to be different from anyone who comes after. So from Nathan's experience and Senna's experience, because you were the first and you had to learn a lot of these things along the way. So that's kind of special. But I wanted to ask about this idea of kind of doing things on your own versus doing things together. Because if I think back to my time in college, there are certain things that you do as independent study and certain things you do as group study, and that was always incorporated into the curriculum. But inevitably, and this carries through to today, when you get a group of people together, 3 people, 4 people, 20 people, doesn't matter. 2 or 3 people are going to do all the work. There's going to be a bunch of people who sit back and kind of listen, but don't take the initiative to step forward. And so talk a little bit about some of the activities in the cycle and the benefits and the pros and cons of doing them separately and doing them together.
Sure. That's a good point. I think that if we did host an event where people can come and learn a skill, I think the benefit of the community itself at that point, at least in my mind, it's just a theory at this point, would be that since everybody's coming there with the intention of trying to sincerely learn a skill and meet other people, At this point, they have at least somewhat of a reputation. At least let's say 3 months of really trying to get after it and learn stuff. Coming into a group setting and trying to learn something, I think people would have to hold each other up,
Hmm.
or people would naturally uh, expect more from each other,
Hmm.
and be looking to other people to actually be sincerely putting forth effort in all of this, just because of the fact that everybody is in the program. And for that reason alone, I think it would kind of hold everybody up and at least unconsciously help everybody do more and put
Right.
more effort into things where they might not. But I think the benefit to doing things alone is huge, and I think it should be people's primary objective to, yes, meet lots of people, build a large, hopefully international network of people, absolutely. But I think the majority of the preparation should be done alone, not with other people,
Hmm.
because you're going to feel that odd peer pressure and kind of tension that comes from that, where maybe jealousy or envy of, oh, this guy's doing a little bit better than I am. And now, instead of, let's say you're sailing and another guy in the preparation comes with you, and you guys both think it's a great idea, but the other guy is doing better than you. He's
Hmm.
picking up how to do tacks and jibes, do all the sailing maneuvers. He can tie more knots than you,
Yeah.
just because he's learned it quicker than you. Now you're going to be focused on, or at least most people will be more focused on, the fact that he's doing better in this program than you are now, instead of trying to learn what you could during that time. But also, you might end up just getting sidetracked and talking to that person too much. Um, the real full experience comes when you are doing it alone and you're surrounded by strangers.
Yeah.
That's where you get the most out of it. You get the most interesting experiences because you're forced to talk to other people. You're supposed to step outside of your realm of comfortability. Um, that's where all the fun comes in. I think a fraction of a fraction of the time should you be around people you know. And I even say this to my girlfriend because she wants to do stuff. She wants to learn how to sail here in Uruguay. And I know for a fact that it would be better if I am not there,
Hmm.
even though I'd like to be. She will learn more if I am not there. Um, and I think that's just how it goes. So I think most of the time, yes, independent. There's so many more pros to doing things independently in this, most
Yeah.
of the time.
It
Yeah.
makes you more resourceful. I just noticed that we've got Cody who sent in a question, well, a point. How he says, or she says, have a way to pay with your reputation in the cycles. These kinds of people naturally bring value with them.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
that is true for sure.
And
I
you'd
mean,
be mixing with people who are elevating and who are challenging you. And as you said, it's getting the balance. Sorry, I cut across you.
no, you're absolutely right. And yeah, like I was saying before, if you have other people around you who want to accomplish a lot and also want to see you accomplish a lot and probably have heard about you and what you're doing, there's that underlying sense of, oh, I really should not be slacking off right now.
Right.
So in those settings, it would be definitely helpful.
It
But
ties into something that you talk about in the book, in a couple places. I think in your chapter around setting your personal values. I think that idea of being someone who does what they say and brings value and is helpful, that's kind of baked in there. And also in the chapter about finding a patron or mentor, that whole idea is find somebody that you look up to who might open up an opportunity for you and make yourself useful to them, make yourself of value to them. um, that's not just strictly for the benefit of finding someone who could be a patron to you, but it can be more broadly just an idea of, being a person of value, a person that other people want to have around because you bring something useful, whether it's to the conversation or whether it's a skill that you bring or whatever. I mean,
Mhm.
yeah. think it's
Absolutely. And I think tying the doing things individually versus in a group to the patron client stuff, that's going to be better in those situations too. Because if you have multiple people, it's hard unless the patron is used to being a patron to lots of people. Like let's
mm,
say Socrates, I would consider Socrates to have been a patron to all the people following him, including Plato and Aristotle. If people aren't used to that, then it's hard to foster a patron client relationship with lots of clients.
yeah,
So that's another situation where if you're going out to the world and into the world and doing stuff and meet a potential patron, it is easier at first if you do it alone, if you happen to meet them by yourself than in a group full of other people, and you'll give them your desire to help them progress will be, especially if you're young. I just think this is how young people work. It'll be higher if you are alone than if you're around your peers,
yeah,
because you might feel embarrassed about the fact that you're uh, for some reason it's I don't know why it works this way with young people, but you might feel embarrassed about the fact that you want to see somebody else succeed and you put forth sincere effort to doing that. Sometimes it can be weird to other people to see that. So I don't know, but it does tie in with everything. The individual
absolutely.
versus group thing ties into everything.
Yeah. Absolutely. And not only, if a bunch of young people are approaching the same successful entrepreneur, for example, that person's going to burn out and not going to want to do it anymore because they can't spread themselves that thin, even if the young people are offering something of value. But also, as you wrote in that chapter, it's about building a relationship. Um, and that is much better done on an individual level where it's a connection between you and that person that will hopefully last a lifetime. And so it's not like going into a classroom with 50 other students and everybody wants a little piece of the professor's attention, that otherwise you'd just be kind of replicating that same model, which if you want
Exactly.
that, you can go to college.
Then it's like the mentor mentee stuff instead, where these guys are all 20, I'm 45, I'm 60 years old, and I have all the experience, and I have to dedicate all my time to 20, 30, 40 people. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. 100%.
I I've been well, first of all, I want to say how comforted I am that you're in the world and how impressive you are and what you're setting out to do with your father and Doug Casey, not just with the book, but the way that you're promoting it and extending. And obviously it's part of that journey. But this week I've been looking at a book called The Fourth Turning. I don't know whether you've heard of it or not, by Neil Howe and William Strauss.
Yes, I've heard of it. I haven't read it though. No.
mhm,
Okay, well, it's looking at patterns, it's looking at history and saying that, what happens in terms of these turnings, as they call them, and what's the predictability within them. And what I particularly like, because lots of people have written about collapse and how all civilizations collapse and the different stages, and obviously that's an unknown. But what they do is they take a generational perspective on it. And what I liked about reading about your generation, which they called the hero by archetype, is that you came of age in political turmoil and polarization and decay and a digital revolution that's ongoing, and that because you were born in this time, in terms of resourcefulness, they're seeing you as the builders, the people who will come after everything has collapsed and gone from all the old systems, which many of us would like to go anyway. They don't
mhm,
serve us, they only serve the few. But the fact that your generation are coming along, and if you look at patterns in history, if you look at collapse as a sort of winter season, there is a generation who will be the spring, who will be there to rebuild and regenerate and to do it better. And I was incredibly heartened by that. And to me, it really spoke to what you're doing. And as I said, I really commend you for that.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. That means a lot. I'm I'm trying to remember. Does it's Neil Howe, right? Is that his
Yeah.
Yeah,
name?
yeah.
He does it in 40-year increments. 40 years being one generation. Is that right?
Yeah, it is. He's got sort of, obviously all the different ones. Yeah, but I think they're about 40 years.
Mhm.
Interesting. Well, I'm
Yeah.
when is this 40-year cycle supposed to end? When does it end? The fourth turning?
I
Is it?
don't know if they actually haven't got to that point. I don't think anybody's willing to sort of put a time on anything. I mean, if
Mm,
you look at the Roman Empire, it didn't collapse overnight. It was the sort of gradual, and who knows? And I think also we can get caught up in that. What they do say, which could be of interest to you, is your generation, the heroes. Your period of peak influence, they say, will be in the 2030s and 2040s.
Which would indicate then very clearly that we're at that turning point now, I would say. And
yeah.
I come back to that idea that your experience, Maxim, and your ability to put this book out there at this moment is perfect, because there's two ways that your generation can go, and we're already seeing from survey data, um, a lot of people in your generation, just like Susan said, are seeing the old systems as broken, and rightly so, no longer believing in democracy, no longer believing in the American dream, no longer believing that capitalism works. Um, so if those things are true for them, what is the alternative, right? And so you and the cohort of people who are building your own future would be a counterpoint to these other young people who are feeling despondent and nihilistic, like you described earlier, and are feeling as though then let's just march into this kind of technocratic future where you get your energy script and every month they'll just look after you, you own nothing, be happy, live in your little 15-minute city, and all will be well, everything will be taken care of. That's the alternate universe of the future, and I can see a lot of young people feeling like, okay, I'll take that path, they'll look after me, and I don't have to I don't have to worry about the failure of the American dream. So I think it's perfect timing that you are actually all offering an alternate view that's not just a theory in a book, but an actual practical living experience.
Yeah, I think I'm very happy with how I've seen things going with young people, actually, because especially I'd say within the last year and a half, there's been a obvious shift. I wouldn't say it's the majority of young people, but it's a noticeable amount of young people who just realize that all of these structures that exist are complete crap, and they're basically designed to just uh, destroy you, beat you down.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because owning a home for a young person nowadays is a fantasy. It's
Right.
a fantasy. Your life is going to be paying off car payments, paying for your mortgage, paying your bills, going to work every day, repeating the same cycle over and over, while you can afford less and less.
Right.
Every year you're going to eat less food than you did last year because you just can't afford it. So at some point, people go, ah, obviously all of this is not right.
Right.
It's hard to find a young person who genuinely believes that the government didn't kill JFK or didn't kill MLK or that Epstein committed suicide, or that all of the world leaders, or at least a fair amount of them, aren't entirely evil. It's hard to
Right.
find a young person who doesn't believe that.
Right.
What they will do with that, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what direction they'll take, but it's a positive step to just at least notice that something is not as it seems.
Yes, it's absolutely a positive step. And as long as those young people have open eyes and see, maybe they can't see the truth. None of us really know the truth, but we know that we've been lied to. Again, it comes back to, you can look into that future and say, everything's crap. What am I going to do? And, and choose a path of least resistance where, you just fall in line, or you can forge your own path. And that's where I think your courage and your example is wonderful. We're so proud of you, and we're so happy that this is happening right now. And those of us who are older can support by sharing the book, sharing the stories, having other young people know about you, read about you, and follow along, and hopefully choose the courageous path as well. So yeah, just really pleased. We're like Susan. We're very pleased that you are in the world and thinking the way you think, and we just want you to succeed beyond all of our wildest dreams.
Yeah,
Well,
I really wish you well. I might have to go. I've just, things not being as they seem. I've just noticed my battery's really low.
well,
Just before I go and get some a power lead, a nice comment from one of my community, Robin Motzer, who does some great work about wildlands and connecting people with nature and animals and things. And who knows, there might be connections there, because I was thinking as you were talking about having a sort of forum, maybe there'll be something that will come up where people can offer opportunities as well.
Yeah.
So before I disappear with lack of power, thank you very much for coming on. It's been fabulous, and I've loved reading the book. It's been inspiring. I think it's great for anybody at any age. We should all be thinking about how we prepare ourselves, how are we useful, and what our own curriculum is. So thank you, Maxine.
thank
Absolutely.
you.
Thank you so much,
Sure.
Maxim. And just before we go, one last comment from Kevin Howard, who says, truly thoughtful and powerful conversation. And that's a perfect segue to say that now that we have finished a few weeks of talking about the preparation, we are going to look at Kevin's book over the next 2 weeks. Susan has a copy of it. Remind us what it's called, Susan.
It's called Onwards at Last, and you can buy it in all the sort of usual bookstores and on Kindle, and it's by Kevin Howard. Onwards at Last.
Onward.
So we
It's
look
a
forward
great
to
place to end.
starting next week on our book chat. Thank you
Yeah.
both. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you both. And everybody have a wonderful day. Thank you to all our viewers for joining us. And onward, onward, Maxim. Thank you.
Thank you, Maxim. Good luck. Yeah, good travels, good adventures.
All the best. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, thank you to everyone.